game is Remember Us, and it's pitched as a solo journaling RPG that explores topics of grief and death. At least that's what the tweet that said, that where I found this from. It's available on itch.io. I will put a link in the description, and it's one of those pay what you like type of games, but I think you should absolutely pay the developer of any game. But we're going to give it a look here and see what it is about. I have tweeted to the developer to make sure that they are okay. Because this is a story game, I like to check and make sure that they're okay with seeing a playthrough of the game and watching it go through. And not, it won't ruin their story. And they said that it wouldn't, so we're going to take a look. Introduction. You start outside of the house. When the last of your family members passed away, it was left to you. While you haven't been inside in years, the exterior looks exactly the same, a haunting reminder of your formative years so long ago. It is much larger than one would expect, almost teetering in the wind. It housed generation after generation of your family, each taken when least expected. Some say due to a family curse. Now, you stand alone. While you face the chance of succumbing to the curse yourself, you decide to document these stories. The stories of your family, your loss, and how all of it shaped you into the person you are today. It does give a content warning that this is a solo journaling RPG and that it covers some pretty deep topics of death, grief, and tragedy and how they can shape you. It does encourage us to take a break if we need to at any point. We do need for this a deck of cards, and I have a digital deck of cards that we will be flashing back and forth to so that we can draw cards in our shuffled deck and draw those cards together. And so we do have our deck of cards. It does say we need a way to record our stories. I'm hoping that making this recording counts as a way to record my stories, and a bit of time where I live between life and death. And, well, you guys get to watch me in that time between life and death. So now, let's begin the journey together. To begin your journey, this morning, you got the key that is somehow connected to this house. The first entry in your journal should be about your journey here. Who are you? What is your family's name? How did you acquire this key? Who was the last family member to pass, leaving you here alone? When is the last time you were at home you were at this house? Did you ever consider it home? Separate the cards by suit and shuffle each of the 4 decks and set the jokers aside. That is a thing that I have not done with my deck. And so I wonder if I am able to do that or not. You know what we're going to do? We cannot shuffle by, I'm looking at the cards now, we cannot shuffle by suit. So what we'll do is we'll functionally do that, right? So we're supposed to shuffle by suit and set the jokers aside, but instead what we'll do is we will continue to draw cards on our card generator until we get the suit that we're supposed to get, right? So it looks like we're going to play by grabbing different things, spades, hearts, clubs. That will be the room in the house, the person associated with this place, the cause of their passing, and the effect it had on you. And so for every room we go into, we'll draw out cards. So what we'll do is if we need to draw a spade, we will draw until we get a spade, and we will do it in that order. Spade, heart, clubs, diamonds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jot down that order so that we have that with us. And now what I'm checking for now is, do I answer those questions? That is, am I being a storyteller in trying to answer this to begin our journey type question in this entry in the journal? If so, I think that's really neat to have a journal and to have us start to write our own story and to answer those questions in that way. I do find myself wondering, right, if I've started to write a story and I end up with a story, I do find myself wondering how the developer of this game would feel if that story was then further developed and elaborated over time and then published in some way, right? That it is guided by this game, but ultimately written by the player, adding in the details going along, and maybe even some dialogue or some memories. I don't know what that would look like. I am not an exceptionally good writer, And so I will not be writing such a game. But I also am going to check on the next page before I start making up answers to those questions to see if there is a prompt for that, if it's already going to prompt us and it's going to develop the answers to those questions. So after I pull each set, write a journal entry about my time in this space. What does this environment contain? Sights, smells, sounds. What is the moment you have that associates your person with this room? What is the story behind this person's passing? Is it the truth? And what impact did that individual have on us both in life and in death? So we feel free to sit in that space as long as we'd like. When you are ready, draw 4 more cards and start again. You may repeat this as many times as you would like. If you run out of cards and would like to keep going, simply shuffle each deck and start again. So you can go through, so that would be 13 separate cards in each room. So it tells us that we can go through as many times as we'd like, and we can go through and we can map out the house on a blank sheet of paper, and we can decide to finish. So this is a continuous story game where it is prompts to make your story in a randomized way. And so I am going to start my story by saying I am Jedi, and my family name is PsychTricks. And that is why we seem to be cursed, is that we are experiencing tricks of the psyche, and those tricks of the psyche are leading to problems within our families, and it seems to be taking people early, but in ways that don't seem to be related to our psyches at all. And I acquired this key by mail. I had left the family, and I haven't been here for so long because I had separated myself from the family in hopes of avoiding the family curse. And yet here this key is on my doorstep. And I'm a curious soul, and so I end up coming to the family house in order to get more information. The last family member to pass, leaving me here alone, would be my grandmother. She is one who outlived the curse, and we don't know why and what happened there. Perhaps she married into the family and was not part of the lineage itself. But she has passed now, and I am sad to see her go, especially because she is the longest lasting member of my family that I have had, and she was a grounding force here at this house. But it's been so long since I've been to this house, a full 20 years at this point. I left in the middle of college. And I don't even remember what it looks like at this point. I can't map it in my head and tell. So I'm going to have to take a look around and get an internal map. I did think about coming home from time to time, but ultimately the curse was too strong, and I wanted to avoid it if at all possible. I'm coming up on the age where people were taken too soon, and I'm scared. And so I want to learn more about the people who were in this house and the journeys that they took, in order to see if I can avoid the same fate. So now, we are going to come in and we're going to start to build our house. So let's go in and we're going to start with spades, and we're going to draw cards until we get a spade. Excellent. So now we have the Ace of Spades. And the Ace of Spades says that we are going to enter into the living room. My house it starts by entering into the living room too. We don't have a foyer or anything like that. Next up, we're going to look at hearts. So we're going to find the person. We'll click until we get a heart. And we've gotten the Jack of Heart. And so the person who died in this room was a child. That is difficult. Now we are going to go until we get clubs. It is the 9 of clubs. Great, something no one could explain. Of course they couldn't explain it, because they were a child. And now we need a diamond. And so now we have the 9 of diamonds, another 9. And they never knew the real you. And so now, according to the rules of this game, I come back, and I'm going to describe the environment of the living room. And so this is a living room of a house that my grandmother has lived in for a long time. So I enter into the living room, and I look around, and the couches are still reminiscent of the... I just realized that y'all couldn't see the cards, and I'm very sorry for that. I'm going to go back and reminisce, but I'm going to do the ones that we presented, and then I promise I will make sure that you can see the cards next time. So we've entered into the living room, and the furniture is old. older than you even would expect, given that it had been only 20 years since I had last left. It looks dusty and worn, but it was just used, so I don't understand why. There's a musty smell in the air, one that I don't fully recognize, but that tickles at the back of the mind. It's almost as if I can still smell some of my family here in this room, even though the house has been aired out. I have the windows open, and you can feel a light breeze coming through the windows, but it is still dark. There's not a lot of windows here, and we don't get the natural light, so I click the lights on in order to be able to see better. What is the moment you have that associates your person with the room? This is a room where one of the youngest of grandchildren would come and play while my grandmother would watch them before school and after school as they got older. But as a baby, they spent a lot of time in this room as well. This was the room where they stayed and where they spent the most time, and where they played on the floor and crawled around the couches and under them sometimes in order to find toys or just to discover what could be discovered within this room. I remember seeing pictures at times, thank goodness for social media, of the child in this room sitting and doing their homework as they got older. Yes, there's homework in first grade. And I would see them sitting on the couches or on the floor, leaning up against the couches, doing that homework. Now, there isn't much of a story of what happened. This child passed in first grade, and we don't know why. Suddenly, they started having difficulty breathing in this room, at this very sofa, I think. Perhaps it was the other one. I don't know. I didn't have the heart to ask which sofa it was that they were leaning against when suddenly they couldn't breathe, and they started to show that they were turning blue, and my family didn't respond at first, just thought that they were having a coughing fit, or maybe that they were acting. They did say that sometime they wanted to be an actor, and by the time that they responded and called the ambulance, it was too late. Turns out the brain can't go that long without oxygen. But nobody could explain why the child stopped breathing or why their lungs did what they did. It's hard when a child dies. The impact it had was tremendous. I haven't had children myself. I couldn't bear to have lost a child, to have somebody who I love so much taken so quickly. I do not know how my brother handled it. I don't know how it would have been that he could then go on and continue doing what he was doing and working in his day-to-day life. I suppose he did it because he needed to care for his other children. And that is just what you do, I suppose. You turn away and you continue onwards. But I couldn't. I didn't continue onwards. I loved seeing pictures, and still do, of my nieces and nephews, but the loss of one so young made it a little bit harder to look at all of the rest of the pictures, wondering when they would be taken too, when the curse would come and claim them. And ultimately, it did. So I'm not going to sit in this space for much longer than that, for a variety of reasons. One of them, I don't like sitting in a space with the death of a child, and two, that's about as much story as you're going to be able to get out of me. I, again, am not a storyteller. But I do think let's do a couple more of these stories to get a general sense of what this game is like. But it's almost, is it journaling or is this writing prompts, is what I find myself wondering. I can't tell if this is really, which one of these it is, if it's designed to, obviously it's designed to get us sit in places and think about grief and death. And what's interesting is we avoid that so much. The human mind doesn't want to think about death. And when we do, it makes us uncomfortable and actually changes the way that we behave and the way that we interact with others. When we think about death and when we think about our own demise, it scares us, and it should, right? But then what happens is we start to meld together with our in-group more. You actually see, when you remind people of their own deaths, you see greater levels of sexism and racism, and of intolerance of differences in general, and harsher punishments for people who violate social norms in a way that could get them arrested, because many of our laws are simply laws because they violate social norms. This is all goes under a theory known as terror management theory, which I've mentioned on another video. And if I can find or remember which video it is, I will link that here. And so I'm not going to spend too much time in this space, but I do want to spend a little bit more time and to get a good idea of what this story is like. I think the idea behind the game is that you stay as long as you would like and then take breaks when needed. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm also going to take breaks because the video would need a break. But I do want you to be able to see that I am not cheating when I draw these cards. And so I am going to go ahead and draw cards again. And like I said, I'm going to draw cards until I get the suit that I need. So the first suit, and I put the list in order, the first suit we need is a spade. And so we get the 7 of spades. And then, so the way that the game works, just so that you can see me do all of this, so now that I have the 7 of spades, I'm going to come and I'm going to look at 7 of spades. And so the next room I am going to enter is the garage. And now I flip back to my cards, and the next I need is a heart. The heart is going to tell me who, right? And that sounds very deep as well. So the heart is going to give me information on who I am talking about, and I am talking about chosen family. I think what it means by chosen family, I'm not certain, but I have some individuals who are not my blood family, but who are instead members of my chosen family, people who I choose to treat as family, to treat as sister, or to treat as aunt. And I'm guessing that that's what it means by chosen family. And so that's what I'm going to go with here, because if I were to say chosen family, that's what I'd mean. So the next one we're going to pick is clubs. So we are going to draw cards until we get a club. Oh, we're going through a lot of other cards here. But that's okay, because I can always reshuffle. So now we have the Queen of Clubs. And if I look back at my sheet with the Queen of Clubs, I am looking something you found out too late. And again, I'm jotting this down so I don't forget. And then we are going to take a look at the impact on us. And so that we are looking for a diamond. And we've got the 4 of diamonds very quickly so that we can take a look at that. And the 4 of diamonds correspond to they were my worst enemy. The effect that it had on me was that they were my worst enemy. I'm going back to these questions for a second. What does the environment contain? Sights, smells, and sounds. What is the moment that you have that associates your person with this room? What is the story behind this person's passing? Is it the truth? And what impact did that individual have on you, both in life and in death? Okay. So I'm in the garage now. So I have left the living room. I decided I needed to go outside and get a breath of fresh air when I noticed that the garage is open. And so I enter into the garage, and it immediately smells of gasoline. There was always a car being worked on in here, or simply a car that was broken down. And so you can still see areas where gasoline had leaked and then been cleaned up. You can see the spread of sand on the floor. Someone must have recently cleaned up some gasoline in this area. You can see tools all along the walls, some of them new and some of them in various stages of rusting away to nothingness. Some of these I think no one could even possibly use anymore. I don't think that those pliers will ever open again. You might need pliers in order to open those pliers. It's eerily quiet except when the wind blows. When the wind blows, you can hear the rattling of all of the tools across all of those workbenches. And they kind of shift a little bit as the workbenches shift. It's not the tools that move, but the wood seems a little bit creaky. A little bit like some of those benches may not last very long, and that we may need to build new benches, or perhaps just clear out the garage and use it as a garage, or something else, I don't know. I don't like this room. I spent an awful lot of time in this room with a friend. We started becoming friends. Our family got together because they helped to fix some of our favorite cars. So we would bring old cars in here, and they would get fixed up like new. You could buy them for really cheap if you knew how to fix them, and this friend did. This friend is actually one of the first people we bought such a car from. who took an interest when they noticed that we were going to try to fix it using YouTube videos rather than using any sort of mechanical know-how. So they came over and helped, and continued to do so regardless of where we got the cars. And so I remember coming in here and learning for the first time how to change a tire before going off to school, or learning how to change my own oil if only we had the tools and the lift to do so. I couldn't do it if I was just sliding underneath the car on one of those wheeled slider things that I never could remember the name of. I wasn't very good like that, and I ended up with oil in my face if I tried to do it that way. But once we were able to go to their garage and to do it on a lift. But at one point, and it was a strange moment, this room had to be entirely rebuilt. It set fire, you see, overnight. We could swear that we had cleaned up all the gasoline, and in fact, we hadn't even fixed a car for quite some time. And yet, it set fire, and everything was gone. It took a long time to rebuild the garage, and by the time it was rebuilt, our friend did not have time for helping to build cars anymore, and we drifted apart a little bit. But we still stayed together. We still stayed friends on Facebook, that wonderful and terrible social media app. And we're able to share the cars, and they seemed to share in our joy. But then, well, they died. In another fire, in this room. And it seemed to be the case that they set it. That the fire in this room was, in fact, theirs all along. Apparently, they got jealous of the skills that we had developed and that we had learned both from them and from others how to fix cars and could make them more beautiful than the cars that they could afford to own. And so they burnt it down. And they tried again, a second time, after we had rebuilt. And they had died in the fire that time. They hadn't paid close attention to how much gasoline they were pouring and where they were pouring it and the interaction it would have with the small bit of oil that was still available in this room. Or to the firewood that was in the corner. We didn't used to keep firewood in the garage, but we started liking to light a fire in the backyard. We got one of those portable fire kits. And so we found them there, and they were posthumously convicted of arson, I suppose. We found out that they had set the fire both times. That was pretty horrible. I remember so nicely being able to go in and to do these activities in the garage with my friends. I guess that's what makes them my worst enemy, right? And so I'm trying to think if I've covered all of the elements as I paused, right? If I were writing, it wouldn't matter that I paused, but because I'm talking to you on video, it does. Trying to figure out, I've got the story behind their passing, and I take it to be true. What impact does that individual have on me, both in life and in death? I think I've covered that. If I haven't and you're here, you can let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I think I'm going to do one more story and then call this video a wrap. So let's get back over to our cards and pull until we get a spade. Keeping me honest by looking at the cards so that you know I can't just pick based on what I want it to be. So now I've got me the 8 of spades. And the 8 of spades is going to indicate what room I go to next. And I am next going to go into the basement. And so now let's go and get a heart. This is a really neat concept. Again, I'm not certain the extent to which it feels like game versus feeling like story generator. Right? So I find myself wondering, it almost, you know what it feels like? It almost feels like it could be a prototype of a game. But if it were a prototype of a game, then I wouldn't be able to create the whole story, right? Someone would have to give me prompts for the story. And so I wonder how that would work if you were to make it a true video game, right? It would be much more restrictive in that regard to make it truly a video game, because you wouldn't be able to creatively generate the stories in the same way. Not unless you had some sort of really intelligent ChatGPT level AI that was interacting with the stories. So we're gonna come back. We need a club, and we do. We get the 2 of clubs very quickly. Thank you very much for that deck. And so we're gonna pull up the 2 of clubs, and their death is something natural. And I wonder if something natural is... Can that be an illness? I'm reading the other causes of death to see. Yes, okay. So something natural could be referring to an illness of some sort. And then the final thing we need is a diamond. And so let's keep taking a look until we get our diamond, and we get the ace of diamonds. So that's it in terms of what we need our deck for. Our ace of diamonds is I witnessed it. Oh, great. And so let's go back to our story prompts. And again, I usually would have much more time to think about these, right? And that's really cool of this game, that you can take whatever time that you need to think about the stories that you're creating. And I wonder, I just finished playing Heal Hitler, which is taking a psychoanalytic approach to trying to heal Hitler. And if I've already posted that video on YouTube, I will put a link. Hopefully I'll be smart and put a link to it here so that you can switch over to it if you would like at some point. But I'm going to take a psychoanalytic approach to this game a little bit and say that it is possible that what you write in this game tells a little bit about you in some ways, or about how you view the world. And a psychoanalyst would have a field day with the stories that are being created here. This game also reminds me of the game What Remains of Edith Finch. Again, that one is an actual walking simulator type game where you are discovering a story that already exists, right? So rather than creating your own story, you are hearing stories like this. You are exploring the environment and piecing together the lives of those who have been lost. And so it reminds me a little bit of that in that regard, except for the fact that we're creating it ourselves. And that's really what I think. I find myself wondering how it would be created in video game format. But I am not a game developer, and maybe this will never be a video game format. Perhaps the idea is simply to get writing and to focus our creativity on something that we usually do not focus our creativity on, and usually, as I said, do not focus on at all. So that being said, I've done some thinking, and I think I can continue my story. I enter the house through the garage, and the garage stairs, they connect, you see, to the basement. I don't go in the basement anymore. I don't like the basement. I know what happened down there. I saw it. But I promised myself that I would explore all of the rooms, and so I enter down into the basement, walking slowly down the stairs that never had a railing, into an area that smells like mold and must. I used to love the smell down in the basement. It was wonderful. Until that day. I would volunteer to come down with my babysitter, my nanny. She was there every day. I saw her more than I saw my own parents much of the time. And I would beg her to bring me down into the basement so I could do the laundry. Oh, to be a child again and to enjoy doing laundry. Now the laundry just never ends. I have a first floor laundry now, though. I don't go into basements. I don't buy houses with basements. I remember coming down here and helping to move things from the washer to the dryer, and getting in trouble when I would drop things on the floor and they would need to be washed again. This is not a clean floor. It's still not a clean floor. It looks like, though, that the basement continued to be used, that nobody seemed to mind. I still see the signs of having done laundry. The washer and dryer are a new washer and dryer. They seem to just have been put in. I guess when you only have one place for hookups, that's where you put them. But there are game tables down here, too. I don't understand why I would see these tables down here, these signs of people coming and enjoying this room that nobody should want to be in. We all loved our nanny dearly. We would come down here. We would play with her down here all the time. We would be excited when she walked in the door and jump all over the place. Even when she made us do our homework, it was wonderful. Because she helped, and she sat down, and she made sure that we knew what we were doing and that we could move forward. And she even said how much she hated homework. That was fun. But then I came down into this space with her. One day we were doing laundry when suddenly she collapsed. I didn't know what was going on, but she was grabbing onto her heart and looked like she couldn't breathe. So I ran over to her and asked her if she was okay. At first I thought she was just pretending. Oh, why didn't I realize she wasn't just pretending? Once I realized what was actually happening, I ran upstairs and realized that there were no grown-ups here. It was just us. I had one of my siblings, my younger siblings, call 911 to try to get someone here in time and ran back downstairs. I knew CPR. Someone had taught it to me once, but I guess I just wasn't strong enough. By that point, it had been so long, I thought that she was pretending. I really did. I swear this wasn't on purpose. I swear that I didn't leave her there in her final moments thinking that it would be okay. We needed 911. No phones worked down in the basement. So I came back downstairs to find that she wasn't breathing. I could barely feel her heart. And by the time that the paramedics got there, I hadn't done CPR well enough. Her heart hadn't restarted. They tried. I was doing CPR, so they had to continue it too until she got to the hospital, and they declared her dead. She never had any heart problems. I don't know to this day why she would have what they called a heart attack in this room. I don't know what would have happened and why she would have left us here. But I don't go in basements. I don't like it here. I can still tell the area where she was. I remember where she was laying. And so I think I'm going to leave this room now and go back upstairs. And I'm going to have that be the last room I go in. So I'm going to get to the taking your leave. After you finish the final room, write one final journal entry. How did your visit change you? Do you plan to come back here? Who are you leaving the journal behind for? And do I think that they will ever find it? Trying to think through my character, right? The character I've created and their life that I've created to see how the visit changed them. Through walking through my old house and remembering everything that happened here, I realized that the people who are closest to me all died here. This visit didn't change me. This visit hardened my resolve to never come to this house again. In fact, I think I'll have it demolished. I can come back to this space when it's a new house. I can build one anew, in a space here. Maybe, just maybe, I'll foster some children. Maybe I could build an orphanage, someplace where kids will be treated properly. But no. What if it's the yard? What if it's the area? My grandmother, she lived for a long time, but, well, I couldn't bring more children into this place. I guess I still am going to demolish the house, though. I don't ever want to see it again. I'll leave this journal for those who come after. We have some step-siblings who are still around. I'll leave it for them. I'll leave it for anyone who moves into this house as a warning that if they start to see the signs of these disappearances, if they start to notice that people are being taken too soon, that they should leave, that they shouldn't stay here, that they should burn it to the ground. I think after I build the house, I'll leave it on the counter. I'll leave it right next to the deed to the house. As I grant it to someone, I'll give it away. There's no need to sell a space that I don't know is safe. But I'll leave them this book so that they know the stories of what was here and the house that is no longer here. I need to make sure that I build it very differently. I think, before I do that, I will continue through more of the rooms, taking stock of everything that is here, so that when I'm done, none of it is reproduced. And I think that that's where I'm going to leave it. There's an optional mechanic that kind of inspired me for that you can make a map of the house on a blank sheet of paper and take a moment to add to the house. And I suppose it has to be going room to room, right? I did not create any secret passageways or anything like that, but I suppose if I were to create 13 rooms in this house that I might, or that you might add to that level of mystery. I am not that good of a writer. And so I'm going to end this video here, having thought about death and about what I would do to a house if I thought it was murdering my family. I would destroy it. Absolutely, if I thought it was the house. Of course, it's probably not the house. Probably not even the land. I would probably try to spend those 20 years finding a rational reason why these sorts of things might have happened. And I just realized that the parental figure, right, that I saw with the heart of who it was, it probably was supposed to be a biological parental figure, not chosen family. Oh well, it's my story, and maybe sometime I will write it again. So, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you for joining me, and please, if you found this at any way compelling, go ahead on to itch.io. I will post a link in the description, and give it a try to write your own stories. I think it would be even better if I were writing this by hand. I don't think I want to type it up. This seems like the sort of story that you would want to write by hand in one of the many blank books that you may have around your house. I have so many blank journals around my house that I started writing in and then stopped. I have one of them even that I started building a world in. I was going to try to write my own story, but apparently I'm good at thinking about world building and the types of things that people might do, or at least the types of people who might be there, and very bad at writing a narrative. So I might try that again sometime, creating a narrative here with this story. But for everybody else, thank you for joining me, and I will see you on the flip side. Take care.